Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio College Football Betting Preview. It's Ian Cameron and Conor Mac. You know us well. We're on the channel pretty much every day, but we're here for a different reason today. We're doing college football conference betting previews, and we are starting here with the ACC, a very interesting conference coming into the year. Let me run down briefly what the odds are for the conference coming into this season. In the ACC, we've got Clemson around minus 375 to win the conference. Not at all that shocking. It's their conference to lose like it is every year. You have North Carolina 10-1, Miami 12-1, Virginia Tech, NC State 50-1, Boston College, Pitt, Louisville 60-1, Florida State 80-1, Wake Forest 100-1 with Virginia and Georgia Tech as well. And then you have the two pretty much consensus bottom feeders in the ACC this year, Duke and Syracuse, 300 and 500-1, respectively, to win the conference. So that's what we're looking at. We'll go quick hitter through each team. We will start with the Boston College Eagles. We'll go in alphabetical order. I'm high on this team this year, Connor. Jeff Hafley back for year two. You look at what he did last year, 6-8 year, but you think of the fact that they didn't have many spring practices at all. New coordinators, new coaching staff, new systems, and usually that's going to be an incredible adjustment, especially in a year like last year where you're battling the COVID-19 pandemic as well. But for them to have the year that they had was impressive. They bring back Phil Jurkovec, who I thought the Notre Dame transfer played very good at the quarterback spot last year for Boston College. 5 returning starters on the O-line this year. The running game should be productive. They much better than last year. Zay Flowers, their leading wide receiver, I think could be one of the better receivers in this conference. Offensively, they're going to be able to put up points. Last year, they were able to do that. I think the offense just as good, or if not better, this year. Defense is where the improvement has to be made, and I think you will see improvements on the defensive side of the football this year for this Boston College team. We like what he did there. They brought in some talent. The pass rush should be improved. I think the defensive line really got bolstered in the offseason. I like Boston College, not to win the conference, no, because I just doubt it's going to be anything but Clemson or potentially a North Carolina or Miami to win the conference. What I do like with Boston College is over 7 wins. I bet their win total over. You look at their schedule, they got Colgate, UMass, and Temple out of the gate in their first 3 games. Come on, you can't tell me that's not a 3-0 start. That absolutely should be. Missouri's a winnable game. They do have to face Clemson. They do have to, so that's going to be tricky, but they avoid North Carolina. They avoid Miami. NC State will be tough, but at Louisville, winnable. At Syracuse, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, winnable games. Wake Forest at the end, they should win. I think you're looking at a 7-win team minimum. I think the ceiling is 8 or 9 wins with this Boston College team. I like them a lot. I think they're a bet on team, and I like their win total over. Connor, thoughts on Boston College?
I'm kind of high on Boston College as well. I liked them last year. They were a good bet for me. I always love BC, kind of as a dog, catching points. That's just natural. But a different BC team, a team, in years past, running, really opened it up, passing it. You talked about with Phil Jurkovec. I think that's his name. You think you said it right. The guy can sling it. And you talked about the offensive line is back. It's the defense. They got to get a little better on defense here in year 2 under the system. I think I have it right betting wise. You already ripped through it, which was great. The Colgate, UMass, Temple. I had that circled. They're at Syracuse. I think that's a win. I think they win 6 games kind of there. And then there's just those toss-ups. NC State, maybe at Louisville. So for me, that 7 wins, I think that's for sure. So are they an 8 or 9? Maybe. And the over's minus 140. The under's plus 120. I think they're a 7-win team. I don't know if I go out and lay everything up, but I'm a little higher on them. I think they definitely win 8 games this year.
All right, we move on to the Clemson Tigers, who have dominated the ACC for years, expected to win the ACC once again this year. And for Dabo Swinney's team, there's always these question marks, right? And once again, coming into this year, you've got to replace once-in-a-lifetime talent at the quarterback spot in Trevor Lawrence. But hey, they're going to replace him with someone extremely good. And we've already seen the guy that's going to replace Trevor Lawrence in action a few times last year. And the job he did was terrific when Trevor Lawrence was out due to COVID-19 issues last season. And we're talking about, of course, DJ Uiagalelei, for the Clemson Tigers, who was very, very good last year. I think this offense is fine with him. Yeah, are you concerned that there's only 5 starters back? Yeah, the O-line, a little bit of change, but again, Clemson's always, Connor, year in and year out, one of these teams. They don't rebuild, they reload. They're going to put guys, dudes in that can play on that O-line, and I'm sure that's going to be more of the same this year. The defense is where it's going to be extremely strong for Clemson right out of the gate. 10 returning starters. Remember, last year they had to replace, basically their entire defensive line prior to last year was drafted
and
to the
hurt
NFL.
him a little bit.
That's what they had to really deal with. And that defense at times last year, vulnerable, but I still thought they played great as we went along. Obviously, they're going to be disappointed. They got carved up a little bit in that playoff loss to Ohio State, but they bring back a lot of experience. All of those players are, 4 or 5 star players. They're going to be better in year 2. Most of them getting their second straight year as starting defenders, both along the line and in the pass defense as well. Clemson's toughest game for sure is the opener against Georgia, but I'm going to dare Georgia to basically show me they can win a big game. They haven't been able to do that yet under Kirby Smart, although I like JT Daniels. I like their offense. They're loaded up with playmakers. Their defense is outstanding. That's a hell of a football game. I won't be doing much with Clemson. I didn't bet their win total. I didn't bet anything futures-wise. And if anything, you're not going to find point spread value with Clemson week to week. Your thoughts, Connor, on Clemson?
Yeah, you're not going to find them, I think, week to week. Maybe in certain situations, I use Alabama. We did last year, first half. We did with Clemson a little bit. We'll see how they come out. You talked about the defense that was leaky. They had to replace a lot of guys. They're coming back with a ton of them. I think they're a lot better. And like you talk about, they just reload. I mean, Clemson's now up there with Bama. They're just the top teams, and they just reload and reload. I think they'll be fine. I think the offense will be good. Betting wise, I want to get to, I think it's all that Georgia game. Let's talk about the 11.5. If they win that, I think they win 12 games. They could drop one. If they lose that, you got to like the under. They could drop one during the year. There's always that tight game, whether it's, I don't know, Wake or, BC. Some will happen, shake up. So it's all, but you just talked about, can Georgia win a big game? I don't know. So that's the key there. If you think they beat Georgia, you kind of like the over 11.5. If they lose there, I think you like their under 11.5, the win total. And I think they're the class here of the conference for sure.
Yeah, I think I would go with under or nothing when it comes to the win total. With at 11.5, you're not going to see me betting an over win total. But again, it's going to be a lot of it dependent on that Georgia game, no question. Next team, we've got Duke coming into this year, and it could be a rough year for David Cutcliffe and this Duke Blue Devils team. Last year, it was really rough year. Defense was terrible. The O-line was not very good at pass protection, and Chase Bryce paid the price for it. And he's not there. They bring in Connor Holmberg, a new starting quarterback here for Duke. And look, I mean, they say he's got dual threat ability, but let's see what he can do here with Gunnar Holmberg as the quarterback taking over. They're going to try to use his athletic ability. But is he a good passer? I'm not so sure. We certainly know Chase Bryce struggled in that department last year. The defense, the offensive line was very bad last year. It gave up a ton of sacks. That's going to have to improve. The defense struggled to get off the field. Duke, by the way, fewest returning starters in this entire conference, only 6 returning starters on both sides of the football. And that's losing people from a team that wasn't really all that great last year. Bottom line is it's going to be a struggle for this Duke team this year. Certainly would peg them as a bet against team. The one concern is I would only bet against them early because the one thing is Cutcliffe's a good coach. I could see them being more competitive and maybe covering some of these inflated underdog point spreads later in the season as they get a little bit more cohesion and coaching under their belt, because he is a good coach. They could start covering numbers later in the year, back half, but early, I think it's going to be a real struggle for Duke. Connor, what do you think of the Blue Devils?
Yeah, it's tough. I like Cutcliffe as a coach. He's great. I'd love to take him as a dog throughout the years, and I took him a few times last year, and I got pounded. They just weren't a very good football team all the way around. I don't know, losing all those starters, maybe it's a little bit refreshing, but I got to think it'll be tough for them to get over 3.5 wins. Can they get early wins? Can they win at Charlotte, NCAT, and Kansas? Maybe. I mean, if they could win those, I think they could get over 3.5 wins, but I think it's going to be a long year for Duke. But I won't say anything. I could see this guy getting this team to 5 wins. It wouldn't shock me. He's a great coach. Great quarterback
Florida
coach,
State,
too.
absolutely he is. I mean, he has, unfortunately, Chase Bryce, he couldn't do anything with that guy, who is now, by the way,
Yeah.
at App State as the starting quarterback there. We've got Florida State now, the Seminoles next up. Mike Norvell, year 2. Of course, they brought him over from Memphis prior to last year. Look, I give Mike Norvell a complete pass for last year. He was inheriting a program that was really struggling. They were ripped apart by COVID-19, opt-outs midway through the season. Half the team quit, halfway through the season last year. I mean, it was just everything that could go wrong did. I think you're going to see some improvement from Florida State. They could be one of the most improved teams in the country because they've recruited well. He's recruited extremely well, even though Florida State's been down the last few years. And more than anything, I saw some real glimpses of potential from Jordan Travis at quarterback down the stretch last year. He got improved. He can run, he can throw, and he's challenged, of course, by Mackenzie Milton. What a nice thing it is to see him back on the practice field again. Former UCF quarterback who had that terrible, gruesome knee injury 2 years ago. We were worried would he even play football again, and yet here he is back, and here he is battling Jordan Travis in August camp for the starting quarterback job, which is still up for grabs. I think Florida State's fine, regardless of who's at quarterback. Milton, they say, has looked really good in spring, but so is in camp so far, and so is Jordan Travis. They've got a lot more skill position group, all 5 starters back on the offensive line. That should help. Defense is where they have to improve. It was a bad defense last year. They didn't get any pass rush. They were bad open field tackling. They should be improved on the defensive side of the football. They brought in talent. Year 2 in the system should also help. I like the over win total 5.5, but even I'll admit that's a tough schedule they've got. They got to open with Notre Dame. They're going to have to play North Carolina on the road. They've got to play Clemson. They've got to play NC State. They got to play Miami. They've got to play Boston College, and they end the year with Florida, that annual rival. That's a tough schedule, but I could only go over 5.5 because I think bowl eligibility they can get. But even more than that, Connor, I like this team from an ATS standpoint. Are you going to make money betting on Florida State this year? Are you going to get point spread value with them this year? I think you will. I look at them as a bet on team, and that you'll see them with a winning point spread, winning ATS record this year. Connor, what's your thoughts on FSU?
I think so too, because everything that's happened with that program, they're going to get plus prices. Not the old Florida State. They're laying huge numbers here. But you talked about it. The schedule is tough. You just rambled through it. Notre Dame at North Carolina, Miami, NC State at Boston College, and then at Florida. That's tough. I think Travis at the end of the year was great. I think he'll probably be the starter. We'll see. And that defense, you talked about it. They got the guys. They got the talent. They got the recruits. The tackling was really rough at times all year long, but they were just shredded. I mean, like you said, all the guys that quit, everything that went on with that program, like you said, it was just a pass for the first year for Norvell. I'm right on the line here. This is not one I definitely am betting. I think it's just under. I could see him getting 6 wins. That would be, I think, a solid year, and that would just get you over. But I'd lean under just because the schedule is too tough here for Florida State. But I think they could be value with numbers, betting on them throughout the year.
Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets next up. Win total of 4.5. This is a tricky one. Jeff Collins is in his 3rd year with this program. They definitely improved, especially on offense last year. Jeff Sims could be a really good, now he's been around long enough. You could definitely see him take a step forward. I don't love the receiving core. I like that, the defense is the concern, though, coming into this year, in my opinion, for this Georgia Tech team. They weren't good last year on that side of the football. Are they going to be able to improve? They do have a decent amount of returning talent back, 9 returning starters. But the problem is, Georgia Tech's going to be better, but I think there's teams with more talent than them that are also going to be better this year. We talked about BC already. We talked about Florida State. Pitt's going to be good, I think. NC State. I mean, you could go on, and the schedule for Georgia Tech is daunting. So at 4.5, I'm not rushing to bet them over. I lean to the over with their win total. But again, they're improved. I think they could also be a team you can cash some tickets with in spots. But from their win total perspective, I'm going to stay off that because they're improved. But I think there's other teams that are a bit more talented overall that that are going to be just ahead of them in this conference. Even though, like we say, third year for the head coach is usually when you see a big jump in the program. That could happen, but I still think talent-wise, they're not where some of these other teams are, Georgia Tech. Connor, what do you think of the Yellow Jackets this season?
I think the total at 4.5 or 5 is a bit interesting because I have them kind of 4-8, but it could be a 6-6 team. Will they take the step? This is year 3, like you talked about with Collins. Totally different, as we talked about BC as the old Georgia Tech teams. Run it, good defense, usually will win at home, spread offense, all that. Not very good on defense, kind of bad tackling. They were another team in this conference that wasn't very good on defense. Can they shore that up? I think they maybe get wins, Northern Illinois, Kennesaw State, Duke, but they have a tough schedule as well, at Clemson, at Miami, BC, at Notre Dame, Georgia. So I think Georgia Tech's more 4-8, but man, it's close. If you get a 4.5 or 5, that's what you're seeing most places. I think that's just a difficult one for me to bet on, so it was a pass. Interesting to see them, though. A lot of these teams, can't wait.
All right, Louisville Cardinals, Scott Satterfield, year 3. I'm selling on Louisville. I'll say that right now. I don't think this team's going to be that great. They took a step back. Remember, first year of Satterfield's tenure here was great. Winning year, won a bowl game. And then last year, the roof caved in on them. I thought Mikhail Cunningham, whatever he ends up calling himself this year, he goes back and forth with those 2 first names. He's just so erratic throwing the football. They lose that great running back to the NFL, Javion Hawkins, of course, is now in the NFL. The receivers, not a lot of experience back there. That's an issue for me, just in terms of returning production, not as much as some other teams. One of the least experienced teams in terms of returning production in the ACC this year. And then you start to look at the schedule for Louisville, and it's pretty tricky and pretty daunting when you start examining it thoroughly. I mean, you're going to open with Ole Miss, who I think are going to be fantastic this year, sleeper in the SEC. Eastern Kentucky, UCF won't be a picnic. At Florida State, at Wake on the road, home to Virginia. And then this is really where it gets tough. This swatch here, Boston College, at NC State, home to Clemson. And then they do get Syracuse and Duke, but they also finish with Kentucky. And I think Kentucky could be a solid team in that SEC this year. So I could only look under the win total for Louisville. And I actually think there are going to be spots I'll be looking to bet against them. I'm not sure they're going to be a profitable point spread team this year. Connor, what do you think of Louisville?
Louisville to me is like up in the air. I right away I thought I was a little bit like, I think they'll be better as long as Cunningham's back there, but their defense was shredded. They had tackling issues all year long. And then I saw the schedule because I thought right away, just a month ago, I said, I think this is over, this win total with Louisville. I said, I think they'll be better, but I don't know with this team, the coaching staff. It seems like they've stepped back from the Louisville that was good just 4 or 5 years ago. And you talked about the schedule. I think they have a few easy wins, but tough. Ole Miss, UCF, at NC State, at Florida State, home to Clemson. I'm right there at 6 wins, and so I couldn't go over. I liked it just a few weeks ago. I've dig deeper. Either they're going to show me that they're a lot better from what that was the horrible thing of last year. And what was last year? COVID, was it kind of messed up everything that went on? Yeah. So I don't know if they'll be better. This is a team that I am kind of going to keep an eye on because I think they could be really bad or be a little bit better. I like Cunningham. That's only one thing, but he had a rough time last year running for his life, kind of. The offensive line wasn't that great, and kind of took a step back. So we'll see if he can bring it this year.
Miami Hurricanes, 9.5 is their win total. They are expected to compete with North Carolina for the one of the 2 ACC divisions, and the winner of that will play Clemson probably in the ACC championship game. So it's a battle between Miami and North Carolina probably for first place in that division. I would only look under 9.5, though, with this win total for Miami. I just get somehow, some way, this Hurricanes team in recent years, regardless of how talented they've been, they've found ways to stub their toe and lose games that they probably shouldn't. Now, I don't argue that the defense is a lot better this year, and it should be. They bring back a ton of talent, and the defense was a sieve last year at times. There's no question. The defense has been improved. 9 starters back, but look, they do lose some pass rushers, 3 drafted to the NFL. we're going to have to wait and see. The defense still has a lot to improve. They'll be better, but how much better? Are you going to go from brutal last year to good, or maybe brutal just to mediocre? They'll be better, but how much better is the question. The offense, I'm not worried about. De'Aaron King's back, and they're loaded. I mean, they've got the entire offensive line back. Rhett Lashley did a great job calling plays. But we do have to mention De'Aaron King's coming off a torn ACL. Is he going to be effective right away for this Miami team? That's the question. Right now, I'm only going under 9.5. And is he going to be ready to play? First game since that torn ACL is Alabama, by the way, in week 1 to start the year. And we know what Alabama does in those season openers under Nick Saban. They're almost unbeatable. You just can't beat them in those first game of the season situations. So the schedule's tough. And I think because they have to go to North Carolina, that could be the difference, and why I think I would give North Carolina the nod over them in this division. So win total wise, I would only look under the total. I think they might be a bet against overvalued team a little bit as well. And from a total standpoint, Connor, their game totals, I bet a lot of overs with Miami last year. I might go back to that because I think their offense is good. Their defense is better, but I don't know if it's bad to great better. It might just be bad last year to mediocre this year better. Connor, what do you think of Miami?
I think so too. I was with you. We kind of caught on. I know I lost a few, but I won more. I was probably like 5-2. We caught on to their overs, and they were pretty profitable for us last year. I'm on the under 9.5 as well. I see this team high as 9-3. I think they lose to Bama, North Carolina, and then all the sledding they have to go through, whether it's at Pitt, maybe a home game, NC State, something there. So 9-3 at 8-4, 8-4 is what I see out of Miami. So I'm on the under in this one. King's going to be great, but you talked about the ACL injury. That'll be interesting to watch in week 1. This seems like his 8th year as a starter. You know what I mean? He's got to come back, transfer, and now he's back again. But he's great to watch. That offense was really, really good. They got playmakers all over the field. But that defense is suspect. Will they be better enough where they can win 10 games? Maybe, but we've been saying this with Miami for the last 10 years. They're like, this is the year we put it together, yada yada, and they just don't get there. So I'm on the under 9.5. I think they go 8-4, maybe 9-3 tops.
All right, NC State Wolfpack. Dave Doran might have his best team yet at NC State. Devin Leary injured last year, knee injury. Bailey Hawkman had to take over. He is back though, and he can be a very good quarterback when he's healthy. And I think you're going to see that. The offense, their entire running back group, led by Bam Knight, Ricky Person are back. They were outstanding. They've got most of their receivers back. Tim Beck's done a great job coordinating that offense. The defense is where they have to improve, and they should. 10 starters back. They've got a terrific linebacker in Peyton Wilson. They got a pass rush, tackles for loss. The secondary was locked down. It got better as the season went on. Should be great once again this year. 6.5 is their win total. Now, granted, the schedule is not easy, especially, look at the non-conference. You got to go to Mississippi State. It's not a sure thing they win that game. And then they got Clemson, Boston College, at Miami, at Florida State, North Carolina to wrap up the year. So it's not a sure thing that they hit 7 wins, but I think there's a better chance they hit 7 wins than they fall below 7 wins. So I lean over. I think there's a bet on team. It's going to be an ATS team that you can make money with. Like what I see from NC State. Connor, what about you?
I liked what I saw last year out of the Wolfpack, and they're a great team, especially a home dog team catching points. Their schedule's what's got me a little bit here, but I'm with you. I think there's value over 6.5. It's plus 110 most places right now. The big game I think is at Mississippi State. Right? I think that's a kind of a toss up. I think they get that, but the Clemson at Miami, North Carolina is rough. I think they win Furman, a lot of these other ones, Louisiana Tech. So they're right in that range. 5 to 8 win team. I lean towards the 7 or 8. I think they're a little bit better, a step up this year. But with that schedule, man, it could be a 6-6 year again and just slide under.
All right, North Carolina Tar Heels expected to be maybe in the ACC championship game against Clemson. We know Mac Brown. Look, I didn't think the Mac Brown hire was going to be anything but a disaster. It has been anything but. He's done a good job. 9.5 their win total. Sam Howell, a true Heisman candidate. I actually put a few bucks on him to win the Heisman. I mean, usually it goes to an Alabama player, Clemson player, but I think he's going to be maybe the best quarterback, one of certainly in the country this year. I know Rattler is getting a lot of hype. DJ could have a big year, and watch out for the Liberty quarterback. He could be really good, but they never give the Heisman to a non-Power 5 school, so forget that. I think Sam Howell does have a puncher's chance for the Heisman this year. His top 2 running backs, wide receivers gone, but there's lots of talent still around on this group. The O-line, all 5 starters back, so this up-tempo offense should be extremely productive. They averaged over 40 points per game last year. They should be good this year. This should be the best defense they've had as well. 10 starters back, deep at all positions, 3 levels, D-line, linebackers, and secondary. They got good pressure on quarterbacks last year. Should be even better in that regard this year. As far as their schedule is concerned, not as bad. I mean, at Notre Dame, yeah, but Notre Dame's down a bit this year. Lost a lot from last year, that Fighting Irish team. Miami, they get that pivotal game at home. Yeah, at NC State, but other games, Wake Forest, Duke, Georgia Tech, Virginia, and then Georgia State, all winnable games. Even at Virginia Tech, a winnable game for North Carolina. So at 9.5, of the 2 teams at 9.5 that are going to battle for first in this division, North Carolina, Miami, I'd rather have the over 9.5 with North Carolina than Miami. Connor, what do you think about the Tar Heels?
If you could get a 9.5, I would go over. Some places are 10 because that's where I think that's where they end up a little bit this year.
Yeah,
I think that with that schedule you're talking about, they start out 7-0 to go into that Notre Dame game, which I think is October 31st, Halloween. Yeah, I think they get there, but I have a tough time. 9.5, I like it. I think they're a 10-win team. I think they'll lose something here. I mean, it could be week 1, Virginia Tech. But that schedule is very nice for them. I mean, Wofford, they're at NC State, they're home to Miami, home to Wake, home to Florida State. They got Duke. So very favorable schedule. The offense will hum, and that defense, which could get gashed a bit last year, but like you talked about, bringing back a ton of guys should be better. So because they could give up points in a hurry. That's one thing they had to win in shootouts. Can they be better on that side of the ball where they don't have to do that? That'll be interesting. So I'm right there. I'm at it. They're a 10-win team to me.
Yeah, and by the way, the Notre Dame game, they have a bye going into that game. So it actually really plays out well for North Carolina going into that game. They have a bye. They have extra time to prepare, heal up any injuries they have. You couldn't ask for a better situation, and a revenge game too, because Notre Dame beat them at Chapel Hill last year. This year they play at Notre Dame, and this year I think North Carolina is as good, if not better, than last year, and Notre Dame might be down a tick or two as well. And Jack Cohen's going to be their quarterback at Notre Dame this year. I was never once impressed with that guy at Wisconsin. He's still got to show it to me, Jack Cohen as Notre Dame's quarterback. So keep that in mind. So that sets up well. That's why I think they can go over that number. We move on now to Pitt, the Pit Panthers. This win total for them right now, 6.5, 7, depending on where you look. So there's a big discrepancy. Some places have 6.5, some have 7. If you can get 6.5, I like the over. I think they get there. This program sometimes does frustrate me, especially Narduzzi's. Mr. Conservative. He sometimes makes bad coaching decisions a little bit, but he's got some serious talent on his team this year. Kenny Pickett has been here forever, and look, he's steady. He's not going to light it up. He's not going to throw the ball all over the football field, but he's going to get better. He's cut down on the interceptions. I think the accuracy is going to get better this year as well. He's got 8 of his 9 top receivers back from a year ago. Tons of running back production returning as well. The defense was really good last year, but they definitely have a lot of talent back there from that group, and I think they'll be able to shore it up. I think they could be a sneaky over the total team this year because I think the offense could be one of the best offensive Pitt teams they've had in years. Defense might step back early, but the one thing they do is they recruit well along the defensive line, and they've always had a good pass rush. They've always been stout defensive front-wise. I think that will show once again this year. I like them mildly. I like Pitt over the win total. I think they could also be a point spread team that could be profitable, And I think this year the offense, for a change, might actually carry the team a little bit more than the defense. And with pick games, you're not going to get high totals because of the style of play they are, and they're going to be very methodical. But I do think that offense is going to be a lot better, and they could see them sneak over their game totals with some of these 40s and 50s totals that they're going to be lined as this year with their game totals. Connor, your thoughts on the Pit Panthers?
I'm with you on the over. A lot of places 7 now, but still, right around minus 110. I love the schedule. That's why, UMass, at Tennessee, Western Michigan, New Hampshire, at Duke, at Syracuse. So those are but I think those are wins. Pickett's always up in the air. He flashes of good, flashes of bad at times. So, but I think they'll be good. I think this team is for sure a 6-win team, 6-6. So I think there's more upside of them being 8-4. And they're at Georgia Tech. A game like that, they could win. They're at home to Clemson. That's probably a loss. They have Virginia at home. I love the schedule. Even North Carolina's at home. So I think they're more of an 8-4 team. So I lean to that over. If you get a 6.5, even at 7, I think they get over this year.
All right, we have the Syracuse Orange next up, and I've got them favored in one game all year, and that's against Albany. They're going to be an underdog in every single game this year, this Syracuse team, and that tells you all you need to know. Look, the offensive line was dreadful. Tommy DeVito never showed anything. He played as well as Danny DeVito could at the quarterback spot for the Syracuse team, which isn't saying much. I don't like the situation with the O-line last year. It was brutal. They say they got a lot of returning experience back there, but, man, it was bad last year, and I don't think they're going to make a huge jump this year. They do have 9 starters back on the offense, but I'll tell you what, that's the issue. They bring in Garrett Schrader, the Mississippi State transfer, who's actually looking like he's going to displace Tommy DeVito as the starting quarterback this year. But again, the O-line was brutal last year. The defense certainly had their issues. Actually, their defense last year, believe it or not, for Syracuse standards and with all the inability of the offense, the defense hung in there. But the problem is you're going to have more of the same issues. I don't think this is an offense that's going to put up points in bunches, and it's going to leave the defense tired, exhausted, out on the field too much. And to be honest with you, there's just teams that are just so way ahead of Syracuse. It's hard to see them making significant improvement this year. The question is the point spread going to catch up to how bad Syracuse is? We'll have to wait and see on that, because you may not get value betting against them. I want to, but will you get that value? Either way, going to be a tough year for probably Dino Babers last year if this season goes off the rails like I think it could. Connor, what do you think of the Syracuse Orange?
Yeah, I think this will be his last year. I think this team wins 3 games, and that's it. Like I 2 or 3. If they win 4, I won't be shocked. But the defense, like you said, at times towards the end of the year was better. But DeVito, they had such a tough time scoring. And I've been hearing a little bit that all these young kids got forced into playing time and that they'll be better this year. I don't know. I don't buy it. Their schedule is not great. They have Liberty at Florida State, at Louisville, at NC State, home to Pitt. I think they're a 3-win team. Maybe like 2 to 3-win team, 4 tops. So I'd be a little bit under, or just don't play them. But on the year, there could be value with them catching big numbers. Plus 35 or 40 points, stuff like that. Hey, as long as they cover and you win, I'm in.
Absolutely. It could rough sledding right now for Syracuse. Virginia Cavaliers next up. Their win total 6.5. That's a really good number. I think this team is 7 at most. More than I would actually lean under, because I think 6-6 is a more likely ending destination for Virginia with their record this year. They'll get to bowl eligibility because they just seem to do that year in and year out under Bronco Mendenhall, who's really actually done a solid job here. Virginia football is a tough place to win at consistently year in and year out, but he's done a nice job here. They bring back Brennan Armstrong, who's going to be the quarterback this year for Virginia. Most of their starters on the O-line back, 122 career starts back on the O-line. The defense, though, last year their defense kind of struggled a bit, and they lose many of their top tacklers on that defense. This is a team from game totals perspective. I think they've got weapons, and they've got a competent quarterback in Brennan Armstrong to move the ball, but that defense could be taken a step back, and you could be looking at a over the total team in terms of their game totals this year. You might see some value with Virginia games over the total. I know Bronco Mendenhall and offensive coordinator Robert and I are not necessarily open up the playbook kind of guys, but they did play with a little bit more pace at times. They sprinkle that into their offense, and I think they could be playing a few more high-scoring games. I think they'll be a 6-win team, but if it's 6.5, I would look under the win total. Connor, thoughts on Virginia?
Nothing here. I've always liked, Bronco Mendenhall, solid teams, and I like Armstrong, like you talked about. I think they move the ball too. I just see 6-6. I mean, 7-5, 5-7, Nate. I mean, at the worst, William and Mary, Illinois, Wake, Duke. I think they could win. That big at BYU is one, but and then some other ones. I think they could win at Louisville, depending on we talked about Louisville, how with them up in the air. But losses probably at Miami, at North Carolina, Notre Dame. So I think, yeah, they're right around a 6-win team. I think they're placed right there.
And the problem is they're only favored in 5 games this year, entering the year. William and Mary, Illinois, Wake Forest, Duke, and Georgia Tech. Those are the games they're favored in Virginia. They're going to have to steal a win or two against some of the other teams they're playing, like a Virginia Tech, like a BYU, like a
kind of toss-up games.
Dame. Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of just another one. Yeah, they need to catch a break. Yeah.
So that's the thing. That's what makes that win total a little dicey. Virginia Tech Hokies now. Justin Fuente, 6th season back at Virginia Tech. 7.5 is the win total. We'll have to wait and see how it goes in terms of their quarterback situation. Remember, Quincy Patterson transferred out. Hendon Hooker, who was the starter most of last year, transferred to Tennessee. So it's going to be Braxton Burmeister, a guy who's been with Boise and Oregon in the past, likely as their quarterback. Let's see if he can stay healthy. He's had lots of injuries in the past. They have 8. They got some good production back on offense. The receiving core, very, very good. 6 of the top 7 back. They got a good running back group. O-line, though, 4-star returners back. That's good. The defense, 7 returning starters back, but a defense that had their issues last year, big time, giving up points and giving up yardage. And you look at the schedule, the defense will be better, but again, kind of like Miami's defense. Are you going to go from bad to great or just bad to decent? That's the big question. Schedule-wise, the good news for them is no Clemson on their schedule. No North Carolina. They do have North Carolina, I should say, the first game of the year, but no Clemson. They do have to play, though, Miami, Boston College. So as far as the win total goes, 7.5, I'm not ready to buy in just yet to Virginia Tech being an 8-win team with that schedule and with questions on defense. And I'm not sold totally on Braxton Burmeister by any stretch of the imagination. So win total wise, I would look under this total. And I'm higher on Boston College. I'm higher on NC State. I'm higher on even Pitt, to be honest with you, than I am this Virginia Tech team, which I think could be a little more overvalued. They're pricing Virginia Tech right with these teams. They're the team I'd be more eager to bet against as opposed to Boston College, Pitt, NC State, and some of those other teams. Connor Mac, what's your thoughts here on the Hokies?
I think their schedule is kind of average. Like you said, they don't get Clemson. The home North Carolina, at West Virginia, home to Pitt, at Miami, at Virginia, Notre Dame. I got them 4 wins, 5 wins. So there's these couple of these toss-up games like Virginia, they got to win, Georgia Tech. So to me, if I had to go, it'd be 7 or under. Like I would be lean a little under or just push at 7 wins. I don't see them being better than this in this schedule at all. So I got them kind of under 6-6 team here with the Hokies.
All right, we reached our final team, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons here in the ACC. It's Dave Clawson, once again, his 8th year as the head coach. The win total of 7 here for the Demon Deacons. I got some question marks here with this group coming into the year. Obviously Sam Hartman, very experienced quarterback, been here now for 3 years with this Wake Forest team. They got a lot of talent back on offense. In terms of the receiving core, should actually be very good. I don't doubt that by any stretch of the imagination, but they're already suffering one key receiver's already out for the season and suffering an injury in August camp. So be careful. I mean, that's clearly the unit of strength there, the wide receiving core for Wake, but that definitely is a concern that there are a couple of key injuries in the receiving core. Christian Beal-Smith is back to run the football. Obviously, the defense, that's another area that's got to get better for a team that got no pass rush last year, got shredded both through the air and on the ground, but they have 7 of their top 8 defensive tacklers back from a year ago. So the defense is improved. I definitely think it is. The offense, though, I don't know. It could take a step back. O-line, a little in flux. They already have suffered an injury in wide receiver. The problem is they now play at one of the fastest paces and fastest tempos in college football, Wake Forest. But their defense has improved, and now their offense is, the receiving corps took a hit there with in the camp. Maybe you're going to get these 60s, even 70s totals with Wake Forest like you've had the last couple of years. Maybe you can go under some of these. If the defense is even just a little bit better, which I think it could be, maybe you're not going to get just one shootout after the next from Wake Forest this year. I do think they would go under their win total. It's the only way I would bet it. And I think in terms of bet on, bet against, lean bet against from an ATS standpoint week to week, just because there are other teams in this conference that I've already mentioned that I'm a little bit higher on than this Wake Forest team. Connor, what do you think of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons?
Not very high on them. They're a team at certain times I like to back, as a dog, or certain times in the year, and during their schedule throughout the last, 5 years or so. I see them as maybe a 6-win team. So I'd be on their under. I see a lot their win total 6.5. I'd be under there. I mean, Old Dominion, Norfolk State, at Syracuse, those are probably wins. Duke. Then we get into those toss-up games, kind of Louisville, Virginia. Will they step up? That defense was not good, like you talked about. It got shredded, and they are bringing guys back. But will they be better? And Hartman's kind of just Hartman. I mean, he's been around there. At times he shows flashes, and they can score. But definitely a team I lean towards under. I see more just 6-6. I mean, maybe 5-7, but I think they can get 6 wins. But I lean that under 6.5 win total.
All right, leaning toward the under with the Wake Forest win total. That's your look at the ACC. That's your ACC betting preview for the upcoming college football season on Pub Sports Radio. Stay tuned for more conference previews from a betting perspective right here on Pub Sports Radio. Thanks.